You are listening to the Will Power Podcast. Welcome to the show. I am Will Holdren, and I talk with some of the most influential CEOs, entrepreneurial leaders, and thought leaders to reveal the secrets that have led to their success. I believe that with the right knowledge and mindset, you can do anything you say your mind to. So if you want to learn how to change your life for the better, if you want to learn how millionaires actually became wealthy, or if you want to develop and start your own business from the ground up with the right knowledge to help you, then you are in the right place because this is the Willpower Podcast.
How are we doing, everyone? My name is Will Holdren. I am the host of the Willpower Podcast, and today we have an amazing guest that we have had on our podcast probably a couple of years ago now, and his name is Peter Pasternack. And Peter is the host of Real Estate Connections, which is based out of Atlanta, Georgia. It's one of the biggest real estate networking events. And on top of that, he is one of the biggest investors out of the Atlanta marketplace. He has done over 1,000 flips without losing money on any one of those flips. And I've got to know him very well over the last couple of years. One of my best friends. We're both based out of Atlanta, Georgia right now. So with that being said, Peter, thank you so much for joining me today.
Will, it is such a pleasure to be here. I always enjoy getting to spend time with you and just, sharing ideas. And am I the first guest that has like the second, like a repeat? Am I that special, or has somebody else done this before?
You actually are that special. You're the first repeat guest we have on here. So yeah, that is quite the accomplishment right there.
Makes me feel good. And what I love is when we spend time together and we just brainstorm some of the things we come up with. Good things happen.
Good things always happen.
It's always about spending time with the people you care about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I want to jump into your story a little bit. A lot of people can look at you now and say, man, what a success you are. I mean, over 1,000 flips. You're on national television on A&E's Flip This House for 3 seasons, which is incredible. But you and I both know entrepreneurship is not a straight line road that's just easy and uphill. We both know it's pretty hard. So if you don't mind jumping into your childhood a little bit, what was that like for you, and how did you get started in real estate?
So I love that question. Thank you for asking that. So a little bit about myself. And the reason I like doing this is, you're right. Sometimes people look at you and they think your life has been easy and, you haven't had any challenges. And everybody I know who's successful has a story. And my story, what I'm going to share is my story. It's not bigger and better than anybody else's story, but it's just mine. So I'm going to be 65 in 2 months. Don't vote day over 35.
Congratulations. You look good.
And so I'm the youngest of 3 children. And at 7 months, my mom had food poisoning and went into contractions. And they tried to stop that because being a 2-month preemie baby, 60 plus years ago was not good. But they weren't able to. I was less than 3 pounds. I was like 2 pounds, 6 ounces. And because I came so early, there were a lot of things that weren't developed. And so what I remember about my childhood has always been the hospital. I had 9 operations by the time I was 5. And the thing, probably the biggest, is I did not get hearing until I was 5. So people always made fun of me, called me deaf mute. And, children can be really cruel, but I had a teacher, I remember, when I first started when I got my hearing back, going to a speech therapist, and they were doing a play. And she asked for people to raise their hand if they were interested. And I raised my hand, and she looked at me and in front of everybody said, "Why are you raising your hand? You can't talk." And I still can remember that. Now, she got in a lot of trouble, but once you've done that, it doesn't get undone. So I went to a speech therapist for 3 years. I learned how to speak phonetically, and I was still a very introverted child. And the reason was because every time I talked, people made fun of me. And so, why talk when you know that? And so now that I am who I am and I talk, I just say, I'm just making it for lost time. For those 5 years of base I didn't speak, I'm just doing that. And so that was my childhood. And then, went to school, University of Georgia, undergrad, master's in accounting. I'm a CPA. First job was with Price Waterhouse. I always say for 40 years, when I had 5 times this amount of energy, it just wasn't a good mix. I'm not sure if it was more challenging for them or myself. Yeah. So at my 2 years, which is what I needed because I had passed the CPA exam to get licensed, I gave notice. Didn't know what I was going to do, but I'm like, I'm done. And so the next 20 years, I worked in the banking world. I started as an auditor. Then I ran the operations side. Then I was the top lender. And then I was president of the bank. So I love talking about like business and entrepreneurship. And it's one of my favorite things to do. And, goes to show that just because you started a certain way doesn't mean you have to be a victim or stay in that lane. And I love, whiteboarding, having ideas, financed over 1,000 companies. And then fast forward, how I got into real estate. My dad owned a Dunkin' Donuts and a restaurant in Connecticut, so I grew up in an entrepreneurial environment, and I always wanted to do that. And so at 44 years old, I had the opportunity to leave the bank and go to work for one of my clients, and it was a large commercial printing company, and they said, look, in 6 months, you either have to buy it or leave, because both their wives wanted them to get out of the business. So I did that, bought the company after 6 months. In a year, I bought 6 other companies, and so I had 7 companies I was running, working 7 days a week, 100+ hours. I had a friend who was my personal trainer and was 15 years younger than I, and so it was like a little brother that I never had since I was the youngest child. And if you have friends who are personal trainers, they're really limited to the money they can make unless they own it, because most people want to work out either before work or after. And so always trying to help people. I said to him one day, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And he said, I want to get into real estate. So again, I didn't have a whole lot of time because I'm 7 businesses, 7 days a week, 100+. But we started. We were on our 4th flip, 8 months into it, and ended up on national television.
That's incredible.
And so it gave me the opportunity to, have a Wikipedia page. The nice thing is we had 2 million viewers a episode. Yeah. So it gave me the credibility of being on national television, but it's not like I knew a whole lot, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, I was very new into real estate investing, but my background of starting businesses and being in made a difference. And so let me just use a mentoring moment, because a lot of people always ask me, how could you ended up on TV 8 months into your real estate investing career? And I always say that they want to look at that, but let's go back to what the network liked about me. While I'm a high energy guy, there are a lot of high energy people. They liked that I was president of a bank and that I worked at Price Waterhouse. So it's not the 8 months, it was the 25 years of things I did before that got me into the game.
There was definitely a long build up to that. And I've heard your story so many times, but for those that are listening, the first time, even me hearing it again, it's so inspiring to see what you came from to where you are now. I mean, going on national television, speaking in front of millions of people every single episode is absolutely incredible. And I think that'll definitely resonate with a lot of people.
So let me add one other thing. I know you know this, but I tell the story that when it came time, I had to go and record the opening of this show. And there's still about 15 episodes on demand. So Flip This House on A&E. You can see it. And the opening of the show is, my name is Peter Pasternack. And they had people that flew down from New York to do that recording. And I went to the recording show, and it's kind of like being on a football field. It was huge. Part of it was where the producers were and those folks, like soundproof. And so I started to hyperventilate when I got into the recording studio. And most people know I'm positive and high energy, and all of a sudden I almost had trouble breathing. And what I realized is that I went back to all the years, and there were a lot of years between that, over 40, of how people made fun of me when I spoke. And I knew that millions of people were going to hear the opening of that show. And I had trouble breathing. And it took probably 30 or 45 minutes, and I was horrible because my voice was cracking. I mean, it was just really bad. And then I finally got it together, and it worked out. But, it just reminds you that when you had things that happened many years ago, there could be things that trigger. Like for me, I triggered all those people that laughed and made fun of me and called me a deaf mute. But I didn't let that stop me from doing what I've done today, right? I always say that everyone has things that happen in life, And you can either consider yourself a victim or use it as an impetus to do something bigger and or better. And that's what I've chosen because it is a choice to get where I am today.
It's truly amazing how your mindset is like that, you know, just come where you come from, where you are now. It's so amazing. And you are definitely one of the most wonderful human beings I think I've ever met in my life, with the most giving heart that I've ever seen. And so for those of you listening to this podcast, we always talk a lot about mentorship, and Peter has been the mentor in my life. I met him through a direct sales company like my sophomore year of high school, and we'll get in the story of how we actually connected on there. But after that happened, him and I grew over time. We did a podcast, and we just stayed in touch. And a couple years down the road, I mean, we still just talk to each other very often. And he's the one that really helped me get started with real estate. For those of you that don't know, I moved from Pennsylvania down to Atlanta, Georgia, earlier this year, and I live a mile away from Peter Pasternack. So when we always talk about getting a mentor to help you change your life, this is what I'm talking about. And you just need to find someone that truly has a helping heart and that cares about your morals and your missions and where you want to go. And Peter has been that for me. And so I just want to thank you on air for everything you've done for me and helped me get to where I am, because this is amazing.
Well, I appreciate that. But here's what I would tell you. When you get a mentor, there's nothing, Will, that I've taught you that you could not have learned on your own. But what it does is it gets you where you want to go to quicker. And let me give kudos to you, because there's a difference between mentoring someone, but you were a sponge. You absorbed and always wanted to learn more. And when you mentor someone, there's nothing, it's like I'm a proud dad, right? Because I see you taking this and using it. Don't get a mentor, learn stuff, and do nothing, because what a shame that is. And your ability to take action is something that really has set you apart from most people that I know.
Well, I appreciate it. Just trying to follow in your footsteps. And so we always talk about finding mentors, how to do that. And I think you and I actually have a very interesting story of how we met. So I want to hear from your eyes how we met. I remember sitting on a Zoom meeting and just some direct sales company talking about stuff. And yeah, if you want to tell your side of the story of how we actually met.
All right, so I want to be clear. My side of the story is the truth. And then I don't know what Will's going to say.
There's two sides to every story and somewhere in the middle. So just repeat that.
So I remember, so we were on a Friday leadership call, and it's from like 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And you typically would not find somebody 19 years old that's committed enough to be on a leadership call. So I saw Will, and I sent him a direct message. I think he had said something, and it spoke to me. And then I went on Facebook, and I sent him a friend request. So the next week we're back, and he's back in the leadership and has not responded. So I think I said, I'm thinking, who the heck does this guy think he is? 19 years old. I'm trying to help him. And when I sent him the message, that I think I said something like, hey, I've sent you a friend request. And he responded, you know what? I really don't go on Facebook often. So then I teased him. I said, then get the heck off Facebook and stuff, because like people are going to wonder why you don't do that. But we laugh about that now. But it just goes to show sometimes things can start off a little bit rough, but Will is just absolutely one of the most incredible human beings I have ever met. And I always say, don't let his age kind of think that he's a typical, now he's going to be 23 next Friday on his birthday. Get to have dinner with him and celebrate. Yeah. But you always have to, first impressions aren't always correct. And you have to spend time with people and let their actions show you who they are, not, what they say.
No doubt.
Now, let me hear what your version of this is, Will.
I think it's a very similar version. Yeah, I remember sitting in my parents' house, getting a message come in and say, hey, I'm Peter. Nice to meet you. I responded to you. And then, yeah, I did not go on Facebook. I feel like a lot of Gen Z people just don't have Facebook. So thank you for getting me back on Facebook, back in that role, and helping me get that started. But looking back on it, it's crazy how one small moment can completely transform your life. And I think it's so easy for people to get stuck in trying to force these moments when in reality, like if you just go out there, put yourself out there, opportunity is going to come to you.
So I love that. So I have a good friend of mine, Danny, and he heard this sermon one time in church, and he related to me, and basically the moral was one person can significantly change the trajectory of your life. And when he said that to me, I have a 13-year-old godson, Leighton, and they used to live here in Atlanta, which was great. And then when he moved, it was heartbreaking to me. But when he was here, I took care of him 3, 4, 5 days a week. And people used to say, he's always going to remember the times of all the things that I did. And, of course, one of my favorite things was for 3 years, just the two of us, I took him on Disney cruises, and I've got pictures from all of those events. And while I don't get to see him as much as I did, I do feel in my heart that all that time we got to spend together will help form and what his life is going to look like. And that means a lot to me.
No doubt. Well, I know for a fact that all the speeches you have done, all the networking events you've done, you've definitely helped form a lot of people's lives and shaped a lot of people's lives. So appreciate that. So I want to jump into something that we obviously know as Peterisms. And I think this is such a cool concept because to me, these are like laws for entrepreneurship and businesses. And it is so true. So the first one I want to jump into that you always tell me that we've been working with ever since I come down here is that it always takes more money and it lasts longer than you expected. So I just want to jump into that one, help you just kind of explain what that Peterism means.
So it takes more money and takes more time.
That's how you say it.
Yeah, so yes. Yeah. And so, life is all about setting expectations, right? And so nothing in life ever goes 100% to plan. So you have to plan. And as an entrepreneur, time and money are so important. And so for example, when I'm investing in real estate or really taking a look at any type of investment, I always make sure I put a contingency of 10 to 15%. Now, I don't know sometimes what that is going to be, but my experience is there's always something that comes up. And time is money. So, for example, in real estate, whether you're flipping or rental properties, if it takes longer, that's money, whether you've borrowed money or where you could put your money in different places. So you've got to be ready and set the expectations that it's going to take you longer than you thought, and it's going to cost you more money.
And I've never heard anything more true in my life. Just from the few experiences I've had with it, it's always important to just have that buffer zone.
Yeah, if you don't, and you hear me say this all the time, if the deal is so tight that you may be going to make just a little bit of break even, pass. I think sometimes people want things so badly that they say yes to a deal when they would have made more money with a no. And here's what I mean by that. For most people, there's only so many deals that they can do, especially to begin with. And so if they're so set on doing something by a certain time, then that deal does not produce as much money as if they waited a month, 2 months, 3 months for a deal that is better. And, the first deal is so important because a lot of times people will quit and they don't think it's going to work, and then they stop. And so once you make sure that you have more of a home run on that first deal, it sets you up for your future success.
Exactly. And once you have that first one in your pocket, then it's a lot easier to go to the next one and carry forward that success.
It is, because especially the first time, you don't know what you don't know. And whether that's doing a budget, things that will come up that will surprise you. And so once you've experienced that, then you're set and have a different mindset going forward on the second, third, fourth, fifth deals.
Yeah. Now, next Peterism I want to get into, and I don't know if this is really one of the Peterisms, but it's relationships matter. We're going to count it as Peterism, so we're going to go with that. But you've really built a fantastic career around relationships and going to networking events. There's so many people that I know that are afraid to kind of get out of their shell and get to those networking events to just meet people. But it's so important to shake hands and start creating your network, because that ultimately will be your net worth going into the future. So if you don't mind talking about relationships matter and how you've done that.
So this is probably one of my favorite things, relationships matter. So you always hear me talk about the head and the heart. So every day you spend time in your head and you spend time in your heart. Relationships, whether they're personal, professional, long-term, are heart to heart, right? That's where joy lies. And so when you go out to a networking event or really anywhere out in public, you got the ability to meet people. And when you're in your heart, that's what touches people, right? It's not sometimes what you know, it's how you make people feel, right? And I always say feel, because that's coming from the heart. And it's so much more enjoyable. Now, where a lot of people have trouble is some people are really good when they meet kind of the building, but they're not good. And the part that I'm going to give you next is even more important than building, and that's the nurturing of relationships. And I always use this example on a personal level. So a lot of times when you first meet someone, there's certain things you do to start the relationship. It might be taking them out for a nice dinner, maybe it's flowers, maybe it's a handwritten note. And then there's this thing called life that happens. And you get into certain routines and you forget about all the things that made the relationship start. Well, nobody, whether in business or in your personal life, likes to feel like you took them for granted. And so you've got to be conscious and never like go on automatic pilot, because if you do, the relationship, well, think about this today. Everyday relationships either move forward or go back. So, like, what happens every day? You should ask, okay, did my relationship move forward or move backwards? And if you keep going backwards, you get to a point where the relationship isn't as valuable and will end. So, being conscious of that and being intentional with what you do and what you say and how you make people feel makes a difference.
Yeah, that is so powerful. I always love when you say there's a difference between speaking from your head and from your heart. And so for people listening, how do you know when you're speaking from your heart, and how can you really be speaking from your heart more often to really make more impactful relationships?
So I really love this question. So you can tell if you're in your head or your heart. Like when you're mad or when you're stressful, you're in your head. When you're in the heart, you can just feel like love and abundance. And the reason it's so important, and it takes a while to be able to do what I'm going to say. I always say before I get into conversation, I have an idea of what the result I want is, right? We're going to talk about, here's another Peterism. It's more important to go for results than to be right. When you're right, you're trying to make somebody wrong, they get their back to the wall, and that's when conflict comes, and it's not good. If you're right, you're right, but a lot of times we're trying to make the other person wrong, and that doesn't make people feel good. Yeah. All right, so I always say if you talk to people and the result is I want something changed, but you come from a place of love and what that can do for the person, not for you, then the chances of them listening to you are significantly more. When you're talking from your head, a lot of times it comes as judgmental and I know more than you. The person's going to feel less than stupid, all these other things. So it's not what you say, but it's making sure that you're not coming from anger or stuff in your head. And sometimes you need to just wait a little bit before you do that so it can come from a place of love. Instead of from a place of your heart, than your head. Yeah.
And that's such an important skill. And like you said, it's not easy to master or get control of, but once you do that, then I feel like relationships take off in a much, much better route.
And really, it's the same in business as in person. Like you've heard me say, I don't like break up my 24 hours. I live my life, and it's just sometimes it's one or the other. But all these things we're talking about will give you better results in both your personal life and professional.
Yeah. And one of the things I've noticed about you, just watching you speak to people for the last couple of years, is just the diction that you use and the words that you use. And just you really make people feel a really strong and powerful way when you talk to them. So how did you learn just to use certain words and phrase things in such a way where other people are more receptive to them and it just makes them feel better? Because I feel like people struggle with the wording that they use when talking to people.
So there's certain words that conjure image. So for example, one word I like to use is proud. Like, I'm proud of you. Because when you think about it, who do you typically hear tells you that you're proud? Parents, yeah. Right? And so when you tell somebody that you're proud of them, you can almost see in their face, their smile comes up because they're conjuring probably a time when their mother or father said, I'm proud of you, right? And so another word that I use a lot is recommend. See, for a lot of entrepreneurs, none of us want to be told what to do. So if I said to you, Will, you will be at my house at 6 o'clock, it will feel different if I say, Will, I recommend you come to my house at 6 o'clock. The difference is recommend is it's putting the decision action for you to decide versus me telling you what to do.
Yeah.
So there's just certain words that you can just feel, and sometimes you use something and you just see that, like somebody smiles and you're like, I need to put that word back in my head, and that's a different word to use because again, it's about going for results. It's about making people feel good. And when you do that, the chances of you getting a better result are so much higher.
It goes a long way.
It does.
It does. Another point you brought up a while ago is that relationships are always moving forward or they're always moving backwards. I think that's so true, and just a variety of things in life as well. But for you personally, I know you have a database of over 50,000 people that you've met over the years, and your Facebook group, obviously, for Real Estate Connections is massive. So how do you make 50,000 people feel like they're appreciated each and every day? And what are some things you do during the year just so that those relationships are still in good tack and still growing over time?
I love that because I'm glad that you brought that up because it really is. You could say that your business every day either moves forward or moves back, or relationships. Same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that I do to nurture relationships is every morning I send out 25 texts. And it'd be something like this. Will, I was thinking about you today, and I want you to know how grateful I am for you and our friendship. What can I do today that would make your day better? Now, if you got that text, how would that make you feel?
I would definitely feel appreciated and good.
Right? And so it's all about putting the focus on other people and making them feel good. Now, here's the other benefit. I love to engage with people. So when you send something like that out, you typically get like responses from people. I mean, there's very little do you send that out and nothing happens.
Right.
And so as you're trying to build relationships, again, whether they're personal or professional, this is one of the things that can really help you do that. And so besides that, something else that I like to do, and I do this on Facebook and LinkedIn, is it will show the people's birthday, right, on there. And so every day I send messages to people, and sometimes I text them. It depends, and also we'll put it on the wall on Facebook and a direct message also on LinkedIn. And I just wish them a happy birthday, let them know I was thinking about them, and then I might ask them to love to grab a cup of coffee, see how we can help one another. If they're local, if not, it could be a telephone call, it can be a Zoom. But it's always about staying in touch with people so that they don't forget when they either need, whether it's business or from a personal standpoint, they know that you care about them.
Yeah. I think that's so good. And personally, I think everyone can implement the 25 texts a day. I mean, it does not take that long to send out a text, but that could probably go a long way for a relationship, and opportunities could come up from that.
Well, and here's the other thing that it does, probably indirectly. When you know you're going to do that, now you get more intentional with the people that you connect with, whether a friend on Facebook or on Instagram, the people you follow and that type of thing. So again, by doing that, it's going to support and put you in position to win.
Yeah, no doubt. One of the things I love about you is, like you mentioned, you're turning 65 in February, but you don't look a day over 35.
See, I love that you already know that, Will.
Don't look a day over 35. So you don't have to be doing any of this stuff at this point. You could very easily be very well off and not have to do any other work for the rest of your life. You chose not to. So what motivates you to keep going at this pace? And also, if you don't mind diving into kind of your daily routine, because I know you wake up still at 4 a.m. You're still out working, out hustling. Most of the entrepreneurs that are out there, which is truly incredible.
So I have a personal mission statement. And I think it's really important that people start with a personal mission statement. Now, over the years, you might tweak it, right? So my personal mission statement is every day I will positively affect as many people as possible. So I truly live it. And when you know it's time to change or tweak your message is when when things get tough if you're not living by that, right? So that means something has changed that you need to take a look at that. The reason I'm up at 4 a.m. and between 4 and 7, I still need to run my companies and get things done. But the thing that I love mostly during the day is building the relationships with people. I have coffees, I stack appointments. Pre-COVID, I used to do over 100 one-on-one meetings a month.
Wow.
Now I'm still doing over 30. And so I do the things I do because it supports my mission statement. And I say this all the time. Legacy is something that matters to me. And none of us know when our last day on this earth is going to be. But I always think about whenever it's time for God to take me, I want a room filled with people. And everybody like tells a story or relays something that I talked about, helped them with, that made their life just a little bit better. And so when you do think about that, how I can do that is every day meeting more people so that I have more contacts, and that room's going to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that room is already going to be absolutely packed, and I definitely have some funny stories. So that would be good. And yeah, legacy, I think, is definitely a crucial component. You know, it's how you treat people and how they feel when they talk to you and how you grow. So,
and those are the people that really, I think, are the richest. You know, a lot of times when I mentor people, especially younger people, I've had people ask me, well, Peter, like, why are you spending time with me? And I always say, like, I don't judge people by how much money they have in the bank. I could care less. There are times in my life I've had a lot of money. There are times I've had very little money. And sometimes it's somewhat out of your control. But what you can control every day is what are you doing to give back and help people. And so that's what touches me. Those are the people that I want to spend time that really do want to help, other people's lives.
yeah. What would you say your definition of success is? Because like you just mentioned, you are one of the most selfless people, and to you, it's not at all about the money in the bank account.
To me, success is the number of people's lives that you touch.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Yeah, I think that's amazing. And I think a lot of people have it really mixed up, especially for younger people. When they go on Instagram and they see people driving these Lamborghinis or saying that they have over 100 million in whatever, and that starts creating a bad mindset where success is just coming to money, just how much money you have in the bank account. But in reality, that's not it at all. It's all about relationships and the quality of relationships and how many people you can positively impact in your life.
It really is. And when people say to me, like, okay, Peter, what can we do for you? And it's always the same. I don't need any more stuff. What I care about most is spending time with the people I care about and love. And so it's like, what do I do? Okay, let's have lunch. Let's have dinner. Those are the things that mean the world to me.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so before we run out of time, I got a couple more questions for you. One, what is your number one book recommendation you have for people listening?
So my favorite book is 7 Levels of Communication by Michael Meir. I probably read it the first time 10 plus years ago, and you can get that like on Amazon. And I reread it at least once a year. Absolutely the best book on networking and building relationships.
That's amazing. And lastly, people that are in Atlanta, how can they go and find your real estate connections group? And also people outside of Atlanta, how can they connect with you?
So if you're out of Atlanta, best way is to friend me on Facebook, but I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on all the social media. And my name is spelled Peter and then Pasternack, Pasternack. On Facebook, like you said, I have a group, my Real Estate Connection group, that has over 21,000 people. Everybody there touches real estate or wants to provide services to the people in the real estate world. And live events, the first Tuesday of every month. Dr. Scofflaw's at the Works in town is how I really started Real Estate Connections 14 years ago in town. That's the bigger event. Pre-COVID, 300 plus people. Post-COVID, we're about 150 to 200 and building back up as more people are really trying to get back out to network. And then the third Tuesday of every month, we are in downtown Alpharetta, and Mercantile Social. That's not quite as big. That's maybe 50 to 100 people, but that is growing. And so that's the best way. I'm always open to meet for coffee. And I hope that there was something that I said that inspired you. But if I did, make sure you do something and take action. Nothing happens without taking action. So that would be my piece of advice.
Words of wisdom. Words of wisdom. All right, guys, there you have it. Peter Pasternack, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Will.
Awesome.